have a packing list for everything that goes into your pack. That could be as fancy as a spreadsheet, or it could be just a piece of paper, which I've got hanging inside a wardrobe door. But that packing list, you check it twice to make doubly sure, and know everything in that pack intimately. That takes me back to my carpentry days of measure twice and cut once, not the other way around. Know the trail that you're going to hike on. You'll need to know the distance you're going to go, the terrain you're going over. Is it going to be steep? Are there going to be any climbs? You need to know all that. Are there any peculiarities on the trail? Do you have to cross any water? Do you have to go across any slippery logs, across anywhere? Try and know all these things before you go out on the trail. And the last point I brought up, plus this one, that's packing your packing list, knowing what you've got. And this one, knowing the trail. If you get both of them off pat in your head before you go, they'll give you a lot more confidence going out solo hiking. When you're hiking solo, you need to be just that little bit more careful out on the trail. Don't go over slippery logs or scrambling up rock faces unless you need to. If you need to, obviously you have to, but don't do unnecessary things when you're on your own out on the trail. Know your abilities and your fitness levels and what you are actually capable of. Don't let your ego get in the way. Start off with baby steps when you're solo hiking. Go on a familiar trail and camp out somewhere familiar. Don't go plunging straight into remote hikes miles from anywhere until you actually do have that ability to do that. As I say, don't let your ego get in the way. The majority of camping in Australia is in national parks, so you're going to have designated camp areas where you have to go to. But these next tips apply to those areas as well as remote areas. Try and arrive at the camping area before it gets dark. When you get there, put a brew on and relax for a while, and take your time and check out the whole area around you. After all, it's where you're going to be sleeping for the night. If you're in, as I say, a communal camping area, my advice would be to stay away from fire pits, because once fires get lit, hot ashes blow everywhere and can go over your tent. And also, you don't want to be camping right next to a seat in a designated camping area. It might seem like a good idea in the beginning to eat your meal, but once people start to congregate down there, sometimes late into the night, you're not going to get any sleep. You can camp off to the side, and if you want to join them, you can, but then you can retire to your tent if you want to. Look above you and below you. Take note of any tree branches, particularly dead ones, that could come down, and camp accordingly. Obviously they may come down in a storm, which can come up from anywhere. Don't camp too close to bushes. So if it gets windy in the night, I'm saying they'll damage your tent, but if they're scratching against your tent, that's something else you're going to be thinking about if you're hiking solo. That could keep you awake. Your tent orientation. Make sure you're on nice level ground if you can, or if you can't be on level ground, make sure your head's obviously at the high end of the slope, and check where you're putting your tent. Are there any twigs, stones, etc.? Don't camp too close to water if you can avoid it. That can get quite cold and damp in the night, and also in certain areas it's going to be more chance of running into mosquitoes in damp areas, so try and keep away from them if you can. These next points are going to apply more if you're wild camping, or you get caught short and you don't make a designated camping area in the national park. Always sleep with your rain fly on your tent. Don't sleep with just a mesh inner, even if the weather is good. That way you can be seen, and you don't want that to happen. If you're on your own, you really don't want that to be noticeable. Have your rain fly on, and keep your single pair of shoes inside the tent, in your pack preferably, and then no one's going to know who's in the tent. At least no one is going to be perceived as vulnerable, particularly if you're a woman on your own, and that can be seen if you don't have the fly sheet on. So yeah, be aware of that. Try and keep away from public access roads, four-wheel drive tracks, and public areas in general. Just try and keep your tent well away from those areas. Try and keep your light sources to a minimum. Definitely no campfires. And even inside your tent, try and keep your light sources to a minimum. Because as you know, at night in the dark, lights can be seen from a long way away, and you don't want that. But on the other hand, have lights available. You want your head torch and your tent light, lots of bright light, so if you need to see what's going on in a hurry, you have those lights on board. Be aware of animals. I'm talking here more about kangaroos, wild horses, wombats, possums, birds and other small animals. Unless of course I'm camping in the Northern Territory, and then I might be thinking about crocodiles and alligators, but that's another precaution you're going to take if you're there. There'll be another set of rules again. Remember, when you're sleeping on the ground, you're going to hear noises of animals on the ground, and small animals can sound quite large, and they may also brush up against your tent as well. Remember in the old cowboy movies, when the Indian put his ear to the ground to listen for the horses in the distance, there was a reason for that, because you can hear things a lot more when you're close to the ground, which you are when you're camping. Don't leave pots and pans that you've cooked with outside your tent, and definitely make sure you don't leave any food scraps either. In some more designated camping areas, obviously the animals get to know pretty quickly where they're going to get a free meal. I can tell you an instance that happened to me when I went camping, hiking with my eldest son. We were at Elliott Ridge camping ground over east near Melbourne. It was almost in the middle of a forest. We had our food packed, there was no food scraps around, but we left our pots and pans on this wooden table not far from the tent. And my son woke up in the middle of the night. I didn't, but he told me the next day there was a possum on the table going through the pots and pans, and they were clanking and banging. And he said when he shined the light on the possum, and he said to me if the possum would have had a finger, he would have given him the finger, because he just didn't bloody care. My son had to end up chasing him off the table and bringing the stuff back into the tent. And on that same night there was a bloody bird in the trees not far from my tent, and about every half an hour it was like a bloody chainsaw starting up. So those are the things you have to be aware of. It wasn't a mad chainsaw massacre going to happen. It was just a bird. But those are the things that you've got to be aware of when you're hiking solo. They can, I'll say pots and pans banging around in the middle of the night isn't a good thing when you're camping solo, because you start imagining all sorts of things. And as I say, all the animal noises don't help either. But you just have to get used to that, and eventually you know what those noises are. When you're in your tent trying to go to sleep, put some bloody earplugs in, because they help one hell of a lot. Points I brought up are just precautions, because solo camping is fantastic, don't get me wrong. If you get over those things, build your confidence up, it's really great on your own. There's so many benefits which I'll go into on another video. Okay, Hike and Seeker signing out. Thanks for watching, take care, and I hope to see you on the next video. Goodbye for now.